Today's episode of Splain Yourself is brought to you by Sperry's. Sperry's is seafaring clothing, accessories, and shoes that are essential accompaniments for your adventurous lifestyle. To get some of their fashion all up in your face, please visit Sperry.com. Welcome to Splain Yourself, the podcast that gives regular people a chance to explain their actions or beliefs. I'm Sarah, your humble host.
And I'm Sarah, General of the Laughter Army. And we have a really special episode for you today. Our guest is Josh Newer, a professional counselor, all-star drummer, and one of our esteemed colleagues at Next High School. Welcome, Josh. Thanks for being here.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
We are excited to have you, man. This is going to be a good episode. So Josh is going to get a chance to explain himself a little bit later, but first, we have to do our big reveal. So if you listened to our last episode, you might remember our announcement at the end that Michael would take the StrengthsFinder test, and we would announce his results live on this episode. Josh, can you give our listeners a little bit of background on the StrengthsFinder test itself?
Sure. In 2015, I came to work at Next High School, and part of that process was working with each team member on their individual 5 strengths of the 34 from the StrengthsFinder. So I took it, didn't know anything about it, learned a lot more about it, read a few books about it, listened to podcasts about it, had some training, and have worked with probably almost 200 people now, which is great. A couple of organizations. It's really neat. I really enjoy it. And basically it's going to depict strengths that rank in order per person, and there are 4 domains, but I'll get to that later.
Domains sound magical.
Yeah, and at being one of the employees that's been here for more than a year, I've taken the test, and I found it to be really insightful. And not only knowing my own strengths, but also seeing the strengths of the people I work with, that's been huge. I've been able to go to that. In fact, Josh has the spreadsheet right here in front of us, where it kind of gives all of the next pro's strengths in a really cool color-coded layout. And I've gone to that a few times and kind of said, how do I relate to this person? And knowing their strengths has been really super helpful. But so now we've got Michael's results. Michael, you've taken the test, yes?
I did. I took it a couple weeks ago, and I have to say it was not exactly what I expected. I have taken personality tests and failed them. No, I've taken similar kind of tests before. I think the big one is called Myers-Briggs.
Yeah.
And it was a little different in that it was very quickly timed. So I had about 20 seconds, which is not a lot of time, and I understand why this is. And then often I would find myself where I wanted an answer that was a little bit of both, or sometimes one, but not always.
Right.
And the choices were X, neutral, or Y. Well, neutral is not sometimes. They're different things.
Right.
Neutral means like I don't have an opinion. So it forced me to make decisions that I wasn't always entirely comfortable with. And I think this is also kind of part of the test, right? They want to put you squarely in a place. I preferred to be more wishy-washy, but I didn't have that option on the test.
Yeah, I actually remember taking it, even though it's been a while, and that made me uncomfortable as well, trying to figure out, all right, if I had to pick a side here, what would it be?
Yeah, I like to very much live in the world of nuance, but they didn't give me a lot of room.
Right. That's an interesting perspective, and I think I agree with you there. So Josh had predicted your top 5, Michael. You've got your results with you right now?
I
Yes.
do.
Okay. And Josh has already predicted these since he's our StrengthsFinder guru. And I thought it'd be fun to see Josh's predictions before we actually reveal Michael's top 5. So let's bust into that. Let's talk about what strengths Josh picked for Michael and why.
Great. So this is really hard to do, just so you know. Mathematically, out of 34, I'm trying to guess the correct 5 in rank order, at least within the top 5. It's hard to do. It has a lot to do with your personality. Sarah is very extroverted, so if I were to do this with Sarah, it would be very different. She has 3 in the influencing theme, and you see that in her personality. With Michael, I see this guy who's like, could be 60-year-old professor when I close my eyes, and then I open my eyes and he's got gangster rap going.
Yes.
And
I'm mysterious.
very. So yeah, with that said, You ready for my predictions?
I am. And to Josh's credit, we've only known each other for about 4 months, so that makes it much more difficult. And for a good chunk of the time, Josh was on paternity leave.
True.
So it's not like we were interacting every day. He was at home.
That's true.
Taking care of the newborn baby. So if this is a big reveal, but it would also be greatly to your credit if you were able to do this fairly accurately. It shows your assessment abilities.
I like it. And we'll edit it if not, right?
Right. If you get
Make
it
it
wrong,
sound-
cut that out. Yeah, good. I like it.
Okay, so are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay, so the first one, so I'm going to give you my why behind that. Is that okay?
Yes, this would be perfect.
Okay, so if you know Michael likes to ask a lot of questions. He likes to know about how things are working in a system. And to me, I thought that sounded a lot like input, as though he were gathering or collecting information, something he thinks he might need later on. Okay? I also inquired on the side if he liked to collect some things, to which he, on the side, had mentioned that he likes to collect books.
Yes, that's true.
So my guess there was input. Okay, that's the first one. The second one, this guy over here has worked really hard in schooling. He is a hard worker. He likes to complete tasks. That's a doer. And that sounded a lot like achiever.
Achiever. Okay.
So achiever there. Interested in thinking about how things work. Pondering some abstract or some spatial things that Josh doesn't typically think about because it's in the bottom 30 of his, I guessed, intellection. Okay? That's a sit long, maybe off in a corner reading rather than out at a loud party kind of piece. This guy grapples. Does that ever come up? Can I talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. What Josh is referring to is I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay. So I chose competition. Competition lives in a win-lose world, and there's been some language that I've heard over time that made me wonder if competition was in there.
Okay.
And then the last one, Michael teaches history. He's often when we sit down together, he wants to go back to the beginning before we continue into something. Hang on. Before you say that, can you go back? Mm-hmm. That's usually what he'll do. So that sounds a lot like context.
Okay. Well, I have to admit, this is a little weird.
Is it?
He did really well.
Okay, because I get my guess is that he had at least 2 out of your top 5 correct, but you are going to now reveal.
I'm going to now reveal. So I will go in 5-1 order to build up the suspense.
Nice, I like it.
I have them written over here. Number 5 is going bald. I don't know that was very nice of them to write that or how they figured it out. I'm just kidding. Number 5 is actually analytical.
Ooh, nice.
Okay.
All right. Number 4, and this is one that Josh had correct, is intellection.
Excellent.
Intellection is this was the one I was most interested in when I got the results. This is not a real word. To my knowledge, like if I looked in the dictionary, this is a made-up strengths finder word, which I'm sure you'd be happy to talk about. Number 3, another check mark for Josh, is input.
Excellent.
Nice.
Which you discussed earlier. Number 2 is learner, sitting in the corner reading, absolutely correct. And number 1, which you had down as number 2, is achiever.
Nice.
Yep, absolutely.
Josh.
Wow.
So Josh was able to get 3 out of 5.
Fabulous.
Which speaks to his abilities, yes.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Not surprised at all, though, because Josh is awesome.
Yeah.
So, what do you think, Michael? What do you think of the test? And I mean, besides the fact that they made up a word.
That made the test even cooler. Because I was thinking about this beforehand. Anytime I can use a word like neologism on the podcast,
There you go.
that makes me happy.
There you go.
I don't. So the strange thing is, I don't see myself this way, right? But it is absolutely true. So I think like I'm a barrel of monkeys, and like, look how silly and fun I am. But when I read these to my wife, she was like, "Oh yeah, that's absolutely you, like down to the T." And I was like, "What about all the hilarity I bring around the house?" She was like, "When does that happen?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." So over the years, I guess the thing that has struck me is the previous incarnations of me have been a lot more extroverted and a lot more social. Like, I was president of my fraternity chapter my senior year.
Wow.
And so I very much see myself as this kind of person. This test tells me I'm none of these things. This also could be essentially the Unabomber.
Oh, no.
Right? Where I'm stuck in a cabin in the woods, like trying to figure out how to make a pipe bomb. What it shows to me is that over the years, and I especially think this is what the 200 years I spent in graduate school did to me, is it fundamentally changed who I am.
Wow.
And I don't love all of the changes that it made, but to me this was a reinforcement of how impactful they have really been.
Interesting. I mean, I see the silly side, but we do talk regularly. And I mean, for your wife though, to just flat out say, nah, that's not you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not funny. What are you going to do? That's not what you can do about it.
I think you're funny.
Yes, but and then it comes to the realization that, like, most people aren't interested in the things that I'm interested in. Like, most people won't sit down and, like, I'm in the process of trying to write a book. So that's what I do pretty much every day when I go home. I should try to do it every day when I go home. It's like to write an academic book.
Nice.
Or to, like, collect books. Or the other thing is I'm not interested, and I haven't been for a long time, in often what is really popular. So, like, we go to the movies once a year. I try and keep up with hip hop, but I don't even do that good of a job of it, frankly. And there are a lot of, like, I don't know any actresses or actors that are from my childhood. So I don't do a good job, and I don't like to clean. That's another thing that I don't keep up with well. So there are a lot of things that normal people, I think, engage in that I don't have any knowledge of or I'll do. So this is sort of what I have decided, and I think this is probably really, really, really accurate.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure we'll have more time to dig into Michael's strengths and then see how he fits into the grand scheme of this awesome place to work. But we wanted to give Josh some time to explain himself. And Josh, I know you have some stories from your life that kind of shed light on how your top 5 strengths manifest themselves or have in the past. And yeah, we would just love for you to talk about 1 or 2 of your strengths and share those stories with us.
Very cool. Michael.
Yes.
Great strengths.
Thanks.
Yeah, to be celebrated.
Thank you.
I originally had your 5 out of 5 in the strategic thinking. You have 4 out of 5, and I needed to pull something, and the achiever came in there.
Okay.
It's great. Yeah, and I do think I agree completely with what you're saying. I think it's good to take this assessment a year later. A lot's going to change. A lot of influences are going to adjust your perception to the world around you, and because of that, I think the strengths can move. I took it twice. The first time I took it, I had 5 out of 5 in the relationship building. The second time I took it, 3 out of 5 of mine stayed the same. They stayed in the top 5. And the maximizer came in, so that's one thing I want to talk about today is the maximizer.
Yeah.
Okay, and before you get started with discussing maximizer, what is it and how does it look practically?
Sure. So, unfortunately, maximizer has to do with expectations. So my wife has a complimentary, which is a very polite marriage word that means way different.
Oh, interesting.
And, so her number 1 is adaptability, which is go with the flow. She loves to, in the middle of being about to accomplish something, the way an achiever may, she loves derailing that and doing something completely different.
Oh my God.
And she thrives in that world.
Michael's shaking.
I'm about to stroke out. Why does she do that, and how do you not stroke out?
Well, that's probably the number 1 thing that we've battled with over the years. So this assessment has given us some language to discuss this, which has been good. It's been something concrete to see. It is her strength. It's number 29 of 34 for me.
Whoa.
Just like my number 1 individualization is her number 30. Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah. So when you know that, because she has consistency at 4, there's a sort of contrast at times. So when you learn that, it really helps the team dynamic, whether you're talking about 2 people in a relationship or you're talking about 25 people working at a school full time. It helps you understand the way they see the world, the lens that they see the world through. And also, I think there's something to be said about weaknesses. The literature for StrengthsFinder doesn't really talk a whole lot about weaknesses because you want to emphasize the strengths you have and play to those strengths. However, when things don't go my way that I've been looking forward to for a really long time, let's give an example.
Sure.
I'm really excited about this podcast. I've been looking forward to it for 3 weeks. I'm the most exciting guest you guys have had.
Yes,
Yeah, of course you
certainly
are.
And then, after I put the tablecloth down and I pour some apple cider for us all, we have a fire drill, and it's completely out of our hands. Now, let's say Sarah had adaptability. She'd be like, oh, cool, we get to go outside. It's so pretty outside. I'm really excited about this. And Josh, with Maximizer's devastated because I've been mentally preparing and excited about this moment for 3 weeks consistently. Now,
Are we having a fire drill?
Ding, hope not. So that's one example of how my expectations pump something up to be really big. So birthday parties might be like, hey, let's go big. Josh often says, let's do this right, let's go big. I don't like to scale things down. This is all Maximizer you're hearing. I don't like to scale things down back to the status quo. So if we have a really big mess on the table, I'm not really excited to make it orderly. Or a mess in a system and say, how do we do this? Somebody create a system. That sounds a lot like restorative, okay? Back to the status quo. For me, it's not about repairing clutter or restoring order as much as it is taking something very good and making it off the chain.
Okay, so when somebody would, if we were to have a fire drill, how would you feel?
How would I feel if this whole thing was dismantled in this moment?
We're going to have to dismantle this so we can get out of here safely, and then we realize that it's just a drill, we can come back.
Well,
in that time.
I go with it. I'm not like in the fetal position in a corner burning alive. However, by the time we get outside, I'm very disappointed, and my wife with the adaptability, it's remarkable. Like, she'll live 20 years longer than me. It's crazy. She deals with disappointment in a way that is nearly untethered. For me, it's a lot harder.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder.
Does it ever agitate you, her positivity? Sometimes I have a problem with people who are too positive that don't share my anger at things.
Well, I have positivity, so I wouldn't
Okay.
label it as positivity. That's the tablecloth.
Right.
But I would say it's more so. When things don't go the way they were planned, they get amped. It's bizarre. So one of my best friends up in New York State, he's the same way. He has adaptability. Ethan, who works here, he has adaptability, and they thrive in the changes. You know, walkie-talkie, Ethan, we need you to do this. He really thrives in that environment. Where for me, when I'm really excited about doing something and doing it right, so if we're gonna go to Disney, we're gonna do it right. We're gonna go do this. So I do have a story I can share.
Yes.
Is that okay? This is my Maximizer story.
It's a good story.
Okay. So, my favorite band growing up was POD, okay? So it's a band called Payable on Death. They're still going strong. They're out in San Diego, California. And the lead singer has become a role model to me over the years. Like, I really dig this guy, okay? He's invested in me. He's
And you
kind of
know
like a
him?
mentor. I do know him now, yeah. So
How do you get to know the lead singer of POD?
that's part of
Let
the
him tell his
Maximizer
story.
story.
Oh, geez, sorry.
No, that's
Trampling on his
That's
narrative
the
there.
birth of Maximizer, I guess, is how does a guy in New Jersey learn to meet a guy in San Diego, California? I started writing the company, and shortly after that realized that the person I was receiving my emails was the drummer's sister, and the drummer and lead singer are cousins. So there was some connection there. But it wasn't until I met him at a show and went to many shows that I introduced myself. I was always the last person in line to talk to him, and I was never wanting something from him. I always just wanted to tell him I appreciated him. And when you do that with people, they don't feel like you're a life sucker or a leech, and they don't mind you sticking around. They don't mind investing because it's not taking such a toll. So I really looked up to them, and I listened to their music. I went to their shows.
So this is when they were sort of a smaller band, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then in about they had the Youth of the Nation album come out, and they were humongous. They were one of the biggest, rock bands at that time. So it was August of 2002, maybe late July, and there's Rolling Rock Festival out in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, and my buddy Chris is my best friend. He didn't believe that I knew Sonny. And for me, okay, that's my relator, my number 3. Not a fan, okay? Intimacy and relationships are important to me, and I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
And it really bothers me even more that you think I'm making this up. So we made a bet. That's what you do, right?
Right, absolutely.
So I said, bet me $20. And he said, I feel bad taking your money. Then the maximizer goes even bigger.
Oh, he's challenging you.
Yeah.
Oh, snap.
In a very passive aggressive way. Okay? And we've since had to talk about this, he and I. So there's like 3 other guys in the car, and they're quiet. They're looking to see what happens. And I'm like, listen, come on, $20. Let's do this thing. I go, $20 that he acknowledges me in the crowd from the stage. And he's like, all right. So we get there. And 7 Dust comes on before POD, which means it was a really big pit. It was hard. We got split up. So POD comes out. We're rocking. He points at me. He recognizes me and points at me, but it's not enough. What if Chris missed it?
Right.
Okay? Gives me a head nod. It's good, but it's not enough. So they play their big song, Youth of the Nation, right?
Right.
They get going, and it's now or never, do or die. Okay? They're playing their big hit. And I cannot. It was like a 4.5 hour drive. We're not driving back without winning this bit.
Right.
This is like I said, maximizer's fierce when it comes to doing it big. So I look at him, and he's looking at me, and I'm pointing up on stage.
Whoa.
Like I want to leave this crowd, and I want to be up there with you, and I want to see from your perspective. So he stops singing, and he goes, "Yo, Mike, get my boy Josh up here."
Oh.
What?
So Mike's like his guy. He's pretty much like his bodyguard at that point. They were so big. He handles business. So he pulls me out of the crowd, and I run up on stage, and I turn around, and it's a sea of people. I've been told that there were like 40,000 people. It was a sea of people. Okay,
Wow.
It was crazy. And of course, I got to find Chris, because imagine I get on stage and Chris doesn't see this.
Right.
Chris has got his shirt off and he's swinging circular in the air. Yeah, going crazy. So I got up there. I froze when I got up there because I'd never seen anything like that. It was just
That is insane.
it was crazy. And so I went off to the side of the stage and went back afterwards and hung out with him and talked to him as I always do. And as I'm walking back, this is before cell phones, if you can imagine. So I can't find Chris. I had my hair dyed red. So just a little bit about Josh, right?
I've seen the pictures.
He's a rock and roll dude.
Come on now.
Yes.
So I find Chris, and what does he have in his hand waiting for me?
$20?
$20,
Better be-
crisp $20 bill.
There we go. Nice.
Happy to hand it to you at that point.
So after telling the story, Candace at our job here, she's great. She got me a mug that says, "Yo, Mike, get my boy Josh up here."
Best mug ever.
Yeah. So Chris actually came to visit the school one time, and I had him hold it and took a picture. That was like the pinnacle moment. So that's a little bit of what Maximizer can do. It can leverage, and similar to the way your woo can, Sarah. Woo is winning others over, and so you have a way of asking for things that I'm fairly certain you'll get what you ask, because it's such a befriending way of asking.
Yeah, manipulative maybe.
Could be.
Could be, yeah.
For all the right reasons.
Or isn't this really the lady charm?
Yeah, there's a whole lot of that going on.
It might be Lady Charm.
Lady Charm. So that's Maximizer. I dig that. And then I have 4 others that are really cool. They're all in the relationship building theme. I'm very people oriented. I love being with people. I care about close relationships, and I dig it. I really dig this assessment. It's not a stamp label forever. Take it again a year later. You will change. Believe that you're possible. Everybody changes. I think that's a good thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And this is interesting. You made your wife, I'm sure she volunteered to take it. How has that sort of affected your relationship?
That's great. That's great. You'll edit this if she... No.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll never let her hear it.
So we went to like a marriage version of the Strengths Finder. Which
What
I
is
thought,
that called? Marriage Finder?
Marriage Finder.
I like that. And I just read a book called Strengths-Based Marriage. This component of 2 people, I think, is one of the harder. I can look at 26 people or 30 people on a grid and say, look, we need more executing people.
Yeah.
These doers are the people who probably get things done. Let's keep the visionaries where they are. Let's not think that visionaries, somebody with analytical, Michael, is probably slower to get something done, but that's because they're taking it apart and figuring out all that there is to it. Okay? So it's not impulsive, it's not reckless, it's quite calculated. Okay? And if you can have both aspects, that's a very well-rounded piece. Again, that's the complementary part. Harder to do than the way that sounds. So I need to make sure it's important that I celebrate Teresa, my wife's strength of adaptability. Sometimes it becomes the butt of the joke around the house when she starts something, then she goes to the next room, and she goes to the next room, and she goes to the next room. And ultimately, at the end of the day, she's a little disappointed that she wasn't more productive, which is the conundrum for me, that I watch all this happen. So I try to help her sometimes, but when I'm completely bummed out that something didn't happen that I thought was going to happen, she's equally really good about saying, hey, you know what, Josh? Let's do this instead. And it's just, I don't even have that other thing in my head.
Wow.
So it's pretty amazing. And I do often turn to her in those times when my maximizer's kicking strong, and 9 out of 10 things are cooking on the fire, and it's great. It's so productive. It benefits so many. But when that one falls off, sometimes it's hard for me because it's rooted in expectations. She can come around and say, hey, let's do this instead. And then we do that other thing, and it's helpful. Again, she'll live a lot longer than me.
Yes. And I imagine adaptability is a great strength if you have 2 little children.
Yeah, that's true.
It is. Expectations are a big thing with parenting, especially the illusion of control, and thinking that you can control a human being. So she does fare well with that, and switches gears pretty quickly. I think our daughter will be very well adjusted because of her adaptability. So I'm thankful for it, for reasons like those.
Yeah, and does this give you a better, this is going to sound sort of weird, a better way to fight? There is no pleasant way to fight with your spouse, but at the same time, I believe, and I am probably the least experienced at being married in the room. I've only been married for a little over 3 years, and I think both of you have been married longer than I have, is that there is a correct way to fight.
That's a good question.
If it ends up looking like my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practice, that is not the correct way to fight, because
something's gone wrong.
Right. And the police have to get involved, and then it's a big disaster. But I think that there is a correct way, in that both parties should be able to express their emotions. They should be able to work out some kind of compromise or solution, and then something actionable should take place.
Okay. Yes, I would say, so my wife and I have been married for 7 years now, and I would say the first of all of our dating relationship, and leading into the first few years prior to getting this information from StrengthsFinder, I would say would be boiled down likely to my wanting to follow through on things, which Maximizer sets goals. It's 2 for me out of the 5, so it's ranked highly, and I like the process of goal setting. I like to accomplish things, and that has a lot to do with follow through. And adaptability is very different. It doesn't like a plan. Okay, plans feel confining. Okay, so maybe plans to go out, but she doesn't want to know where we're going, what time we're going to be there, where we're doing after that. She likes spontaneity. She's in the moment. Okay, so she doesn't have that context of the past. She doesn't have futuristic in the future. She has adaptability in the moment. It again gives us a language to speak into these things and to realize why she's doing what she's doing and why I'm doing what I'm doing. I was thinking about going to Philadelphia this weekend to see my friends and go see a band, and it didn't work out, and I was just a jerk all Sunday because of it. And her adaptability kept her even keel. She didn't jump on the bandwagon with me, and we didn't have a pity party. And I think that's a good thing. I think that's sort of what fighting fair can look like.
Sure. And she was able to adapt to your jerkiness? How do you adapt to somebody else's jerkiness?
Well, I think we've learned a lot about each other over the years, largely because of information like this. I think we kind of know a little bit more what to get from each other, and not expect the things that probably aren't likely to happen. Like, my number 29 adaptability will never be in my top 5. My 32 consistency will never be in my top 5. So if I have a situation with a student here at the school as a counselor, and asking her objectively what she thinks about it, my individualization sees this individual situation as unique, wants to know what to do, and probably there are exceptions throughout the process. Her consistency says you treat everybody fairly, you can't do that. She sees it very differently. So from time to time, I'll call her about a situation. I'll say, how would you handle this? And it's likely to be different than the way I would do it. But like analytical, it's not steeped in emotion or affection. It's rather quite calculated and very fair.
Interesting. What are some of the most compelling reasons to take this test? And what do people normally do with their results besides announce it on a podcast?
Oh, sure. I would say so. You would go to Gallup's website and you would go ahead and take the Strengths Finder. It's $19.99 for your top 5 out of your 34. You could pay $89 to get all 34. It'd be a big investment. I would get your 5 first. I would sit on it for a while. I would work with people. And then you need to continue the conversation. Like anything else, you can't just talk about it one time and move on, because it will be like anything else you've ever done before. But if you can kind of create it, enjoy it as like a living document, see how it manifests itself in your marriage, in the workplace, if you're parenting, through your friendships and relationships, I think it benefits all aspects of those in your life.
And if I worked, let's just say I didn't work with somebody who was a Strengths Finder expert, but I worked in an accounting office, and maybe they have HR people, but maybe not necessarily counselors, how would I continue this through my sort of day-to-day work existence?
That's a good question. So the data shows that productivity goes through the roof, and the benefits are, far better when managers or employers are aware of their strengths of their employees and recognize those strengths. So that's part of what I try to do in this place is affirm the good that I see in people and celebrate those strengths. And there are people here that function very differently than I do. Some of the examples I gave of my wife. So there's times where I'm tasked with something that's just not really in my skill set per se. So I'll go find somebody who gets a dopamine shot. They love it. They want it. They thrill in that. And I'll go find them and I'll do it. Or so I might find Harrison if I need someone to open up something in front of a large crowd or have presence and command the room. That's going to touch on his command far less than my relator. Or if I need somebody to look at something objectively, I would go, now that I know you have analytical, I can come to you and say, hey, I don't want to miss a thing. Can you research this and look into this?
So the thing is, it's just funny, you would come to me with that, and rather than looking at it objectively, I would probably give you 17 different views of the same thing, right? So there is this angle on it, there's this angle on it, there's this angle on it, and which one is the way to go is ultimately going to have to be your decision. To me, that is analysis, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. We're going to look at all angles before we make an action. That's right. But there are strengths coaches. People are talking more about it. It's read that there are 17 million people plus that have taken this assessment now.
Wow.
So it is really growing. I think it's great. It's not the end all be all. I don't die on the hill of Strengths Finder. I do think it's great. But ultimately, I think people are in a process of doing their own work. That good things can come out of that. That this gives you a language to talk about some of those changes. And it also helps you see the way you and the people around you see the world, which may not be eye to eye.
And Michael, I don't know if you got in your results like these individual pages that kind of break down each of your strengths. I've found those to be really helpful. And even one of the sessions you did with the staff, Josh, where we kind of looked at, well, here's the dark side, light side to each of your strengths, right? And yeah, I think kind of with your analytical mind, looking at all angles of your strengths. This page says, if includer is a dominant theme for you, and then it gives kind of this bulleted list of
positive traits.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And it also says if it's a lesser theme for you. So if you paid the $90 and you got your bottom 5, this would also be a good way to analyze yourself. I'm thinking about going ahead and springing for it and making Jerry do it too. Are you gonna ask Lauren to take the test?
I don't see why I wouldn't, and especially now that I understand it a little bit more and we can use it in the context of our marriage, I think that might actually be very useful. We have taken other kinds of tests. Remember, there's that love languages book.
Oh, yeah. I want to know y'all's love languages. Is that too personal? There's only 4 of them.
Yes, there's only 4, and as best I can remember, now we did this a couple years ago, so if it's wrong, it's because my memory is serving me incorrectly. Hers are acts of service and And there's one, and this is not going to be it exactly, it's complimenting.
Oh, yeah.
Words of affirmation.
There you go. Josh knows.
Whereas because I am shallow, mine was materialism.
Oh, gifts?
Gifts.
Gifts, yes.
Yeah.
Materialism and rewards. And I think this also goes along kind of with being an achiever, right? Like,
Sure.
Sure.
there is a tangible thing as a result for my efforts. Like, I think you would both agree that being married is hard work and it's challenging and it's complicated and it's constant. And, as a result of doing okay at that, sometimes I just like to see a trophy.
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes
Where's my sticker for
Yes.
husbanding?
Yeah, where's my sticker? That's exactly right. Where's my sticker for husbanding?
I love it.
And I often think this is very shallow, and these things should be their own intrinsic rewards.
Sure.
But at the same time, I also don't think I want to be able to be free to be me.
Yeah,
Right? And
absolutely.
if that's what makes me me, then I should be able to do it.
Absolutely.
So I have these conflicted feelings. So yeah, I think this is the kind of test. We both enjoyed the love languages, a little quiz there at the end. This is the kind of thing that I would like.
Michael, I would like to jump into that aspect of gift giving.
Oh, wow.
Now knowing your love language, I'm
What?
gonna tap in my positivity.
Josh, you're lucky I'm already married.
Sarah, I've made this for you.
Oh my gosh!
I
Look
think
at
that
this.
you can keep by your desk or wherever you'd like.
I love it. You have one of these in your office. So it's my top 5 strengths for the listeners.
Just
my 5 strengths and then a picture that kind of
Yeah,
represents
and
my number 1, which is awesome.
That's right, and they're color coded.
Color-coded.
That's the maximizer.
Oh, that's right.
And the
I love the color
individualization of
coordination.
wanting to make sure you know where those belong.
Yes.
And Michael, I have something for you.
Oh, wow. Look at this.
Look at this maximization right here.
This is super maximization. All right. So Josh just gave me, what would you call this? Like a tote bag?
That's better than
It's like a gym bag.
This is a gym bag, but this is one of the ones with that you would wear on your back rather than carrying your handle from bodybuilding.com, a site which I am all in favor of. And you get protein powder cheap, and it may be next week's made-up sponsor. At
Yes.
this rate, right?
Yes.
That I will certainly use for taking all of my stuff to and from the gym. And at the bottom here, there looks like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
Oh my gosh.
So, did one of your kids leave it in there, or is that for me?
So this is mine from growing up. This is a 1991 Michelangelo Yo Raps
Yeah.
original.
Well, thank you so much. This will certainly go on my desk. This is Michelangelo dressed up in like a 1988 B-boy outfit. He has a Flavor Flav clock.
Yes,
and
he does.
Like a record, what would you call it? Like a turntable strapped around his waist.
Oh my gosh.
And he has a hat on
great.
backwards and some green shoes and a lot of tude. I
he
would
does
say.
have a latitude.
I love this. Thank you so much. This will certainly go right into my cherished possessions pile.
Excellent.
It's fabulous.
Yes, that is great. Well, thank you for this good stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so many thanks from us to you, Josh, for being here. And thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Until next time, take care of yourself. Maybe take the Strengths Finders test if you have the time. It's worth it, we think. And always be ready to splain yourself.